People who are near to the fire know the problem statements more than anybody else. Then you will always suggest a very good hotel for them, and that would happen only if your experience with that hotel is good. If your marketing doesn't know what your sales is selling.
And was it your responsibility, or before you joined you had this process set up with either the MD or the CEO? Whose responsibility is this?
Who is now a very, very good friend of mine. I cannot name the company per se because of NDA, but I can definitely tell him he's one of my very good friends. Let's say KPIs for my customer, then that's the same KPIs for this CSM as well. And while it comes to execution, then we give it to different teams to execute it. So the special projects team should take care of this.
So, can you probably give or describe an instance where you looked at some customer experience or some data, and you identified probably a problem or a challenge, right? And found a solution, implemented a solution that led to increased either CSAT or NPS, right? So or maybe product adoption, like it could be a product adoption also, right? So any kind of, can you give an example of any of those things, like just maybe one or two examples of that, so that the business also will understand like how to look at data very objectively.
So before even I get into this very interesting story, which I usually tell to my folks who join the team on how we were able to flip the emotion of a customer who is now a very, very good friend of mine. I cannot name the company per se because of NDA, but I can definitely tell him he's one of my very good friends from Southeast Asia now. So what happened here, before even get into the story, the way you can solve this problem is like what my previous boss says. For any problem, it's about removing the people from the problem and then solving it. While you're going to have people and problem and you're going to try to solve it, you will not solve it properly. So remove people from the problem, you will have clarity, right? So with that, now coming to the story, what happened was one of the NPS, this customer gave us a very, very bad rating. And we were a little worried on why this happened. And the reason what they gave was the product didn't help us grow. The product actually made us decline when it comes to our turnaround time and CSAT. This is a concern for us. So we wanted to understand what exactly has happened for this customer. We wanted to deep dive. So the best part about NPS is that you got to close the loop as well. You got to understand from a customer what the problem is, and then you see to that it is getting solved also for the customer. So when we understood, when we spoke to the customer in depth, then we understood. We had two products at that time. This was during my entrepreneurial stint. We had two products at that time. One was a chat product, one was a messaging product. They were using our chat product. So there is a difference between a chat and a messaging. Chat is more like old school, like people, you and me, we'd be able to relate to this better. You have this Rediff Hotmail chat boxes where only if there are two people available, you would be able to chat.
Yeah. Chat, yes.
So if there is no agent available, what happens is this chat goes on, like you cannot retrieve this chat also. But your turnaround time, that timer would be ticking. Though this conversation has not been established yet. So they were using a chat product, but the messaging is something like a WhatsApp messaging or the Facebook Messenger, where you can drop in your message, it still gets delivered, and whenever there is time for people to read it, they can read it. It's not like you've got to have two people online for conversation to happen. Right? So the customer was using a chat product and they were trying to calculate turnaround time. Chat product, you cannot have a turnaround time because it is synchronous, it's not asynchronous. Right? We got to help them understand there is a different product called as messaging tool, which they got to use. And after we gave them this idea of going ahead with this tool, because I'll tell you this, as a customer advocacy team, you are mostly not general doctors. Let me try to pull this analogy so that people can understand it better, right? Where a general doctor, right, for him, if he's going to handle adults, right, what happens is we know where exactly the problem is. If I have a stomach ache, I would go and tell the doctor I have a stomach ache. I would say that I have a headache, right? but mostly customer advocacy are like your pediatricians. They handle children, they handle babies, right? And for them, they start crying, and you will not know because of what they are crying.
Yeah.
Right? So for you to even understand the problem, it takes time. And by experience, you would be able to understand that problem rightly, right? So why I'm saying this is, in this case, we identified this was not a problem with the TAT, it was not a problem with customer satisfaction. It was a problem with something else.
Got it.
When we gave the right tool to the right people, then their turnaround time was much, much, much better. And they were able to get quality responses, quality conversation with their customers, and their NPS from being at, if I remember right, the NPS, I'm not calling the score, I'm saying the scale. At NPS scale, when this customer gave them a 3, this time this customer gave them a 9 in a matter of 3 months, matter of 6 months, right? So this is simple flip what you did, and this actually flipped the emotion of the customer as well.
Nice.
Right? So it's about you understanding before even you understanding the problem, don't solution it, because the problem would be completely different from what a customer says.
Correct.
Right? So these metrics actually help you to have the deep dive conversation with your customer, from where on you solve the customer and make them customer advocates.
Nice. When it comes to the product adoption, right? So when I've also done a lot of PLG myself. So do you consider product adoption as part of PLG, or do you consider product adoption outside of PLG? Because one for an enterprise product like Netcore, right? So you don't have a PLG model, right? So you don't have a PLG model, right? So what is that like product adoption? Like you kind of continuously like train your customers. You have a better documentation, you have better videos, or how is it done? You have a periodical demo with the clients. Like how do you measure that? How do you make sure that there's maximum visibility in terms of customers using the product to the fullest?
So that's one very, very good thing which Netcore has been doing for years now. It's not just because I have joined and it happened. It is for years they have been doing it. Compared to a lot of other competitors, they have been much, much better in this space, which is managed services, which is like this again. Both my CEO Kalpit and my MD Rajesh tells about this, right? A customer, when he says that he wants a 3-inch hole in his wall, it's no point in you just giving them a drilling machine. You got to help them in drill that 3 inches hole on the wall for them. That's when our very strong consultants, who is our customer success team, comes into play. So they have a very, very close collaboration with every customer. And you won't believe, every quarter there is quarterly business review, which happens very, very religiously with all our customers. Okay. And we co-own their KPIs. If growth, if bringing in traffic, if conversion, engagement, re-engagement, if these are, let's say, KPIs for my customer, then that's the same KPIs for this CSM as well. So the best part about Netcore is they co-own KPIs. And they see to that the customer grow. So this customer success team is a true customer success team. It's not just a team which does consultation, which does retention, which just goes and talks about the next product, what they need to purchase and stuff like that. They don't do sales. They do pure play consultation, and they see to that our customers grow. This is the only simple thing which we have asked them to do, which is very complicated to be executed. That is one. And so what happens here is, when you have these metrics in place on product adoption, which every week we go through the adoption rate of our customers, then we suggest them on what exactly they can start using. If they have a problem with good content, then we do have our Gen AI powered feature where you would be able to come up with email content and subject lines in a second. And it can be customized for every different customer. Right? For me, I would love beaches. You might love mountains. So for me, if there's going to be a TripAdvisor or let's say a company which is helping you in travel, you will get a different email with a different subject line and content, and I will get a different email with a different subject line and content. And this happens, the hyper personalization happens at scale. So our people suggest these things to customers only if they need it. And how will they know is by closely monitoring what they are using and what they want. Then that's exactly why co-owning KPIs help.
Got it. And these teams, right? And do they report to customer advocacy, or they're as in they have their own separate function, and you kind of
They have a separate function altogether called as customer success teams, and we do have very, very strong leaders for our Indian and international market who take care of that.
Okay, got it. So the customer advocacy basically works with all of these teams to make sure that the customers are happy and they're advocating, Netcore to, and then giving referrals and stuff like that.
So advocacy as such, we come in. So we co-own advocacy as well. We have a bunch of other things which also do as a part of customer advocacy. But retention, this consulting, co-owning KPIs is majorly by the CSM teams, the customer success teams.
Okay. How do you, so if one, metric that you want to measure in advocacy, you kind of talked about 5 things, right? So which is the NPS, CSAT, product adoption, and other 2 others, right? So if it is one thing, let's say for example, for sales guys, obvious, the answer is obvious, right? It's closed one. For marketers, also at some level, it is obvious, either NQLs or number of opportunities generated. So if it is one thing, you would say for customer advocacy, what would that one thing be?
I would say the number of customers, customer advocates have to increase month on month, quarter on quarter. So the number of referenceable customers whom you have, who are ready to talk good things about you, who are really, really happy, would be that one number which we'll all track. And if got to track, if you got to split that into 2, then it will be your NPS will be one more thing which we'll track. And the NRR will be one more thing which we'll track.
Got it. And let's say if you have a number of referenceable customers, would you ask them to just give you reviews, and that's basically part of the process, right? It's the end of the day.
Everything. It comes in from reviews. It's about them being our speakers in our global summits, what we do, coming as speakers for our master classes, talking to our potentials. There is very good, this thing happened in LinkedIn, which is one thing which we all loved about. One of the customers on LinkedIn, it's a US-based customer, if I remember right, went and asked, which one should I choose? Should I choose a Netcore or any other competitor? Then there were almost 8 to 9 customers without even nudges. These customers saw this. I don't know how this became little viral, but this post became little viral, because of which most of our customers saw this. And there were customers who went and suggested Netcore. There was not Netcore people going and suggesting Netcore. It was customers using Netcore who went and suggested Netcore. And that was one thing which we all released upon. Almost 2-3 months back it happened, where the true success of a customer advocacy, if you ask me, is about your customers going on LinkedIn, not minding about what others will be thinking about, and just going and talking good things about the company which they are working with.
Nice. Okay, so let's get down to some, rapid fire, right? So what is the one growth hack you wish more people knew about?
I would say growth hack would be focus more on customer retention compared to customer acquisition, because customer retention gives you 2x, 3x more growth compared to acquisition. And for customer retention, there are a bunch of marketing stuff what you got to do, right? Focus on that equally or even more.
What is the most customer experience mistakes that you see businesses make?
Customer experience mistake, I think I've spoken about this earlier as well. It's about people think that customer experience starts and ends with GTM. No, customer experience starts with that first click what a customer does. So the product, the engineering, the support, the CSM, let's say your sales, your marketing, your pre-sales, everybody gets customer advocacy. Everybody gets involved when it comes to customer experience. So the myth which has to be broken is customer experience starts and stops with GTM teams. No, it's a entire organization's goal.
I get pissed off when I see such a big form, to fill, like a 10 field or a 12 field, and then as soon as you fill a form, you get calls. Like
Yeah.
this, I mean, of course, I mean, it's if it's high intent, if it's a request demo, yes, right. But then you download a piece of content, and then somebody starts calling you. So that's a big no for me. So I start. For me, that's the first touch point, basically, right? So you're creating an experience for the customer, so a prospect who will potentially be a customer at some point.
Let me give you one more thing, which, because you spoke about this and it's a valid point, I wanted to add upon that. Not all your conversations with your potential needs to be salesy, right? For a good customer engagement to happen, the potential should start gaining confidence on you. And that can happen only with your domain expertise and not with your sales expertise. So don't try to immediately get on a conversation saying that, you know what, I have this product, do you want to buy? Maybe listen to them, understand their problems better. And even if your product cannot solve, advise them about a product that can solve this issue for them and royally walk out of that conversation.
Yeah, I've always had this problem. It could be a moral or an ethical problem that you come to a webinar and then that entire webinar list is being shared with an SDR team. So then they'll start calling them, right? And then there's also this that I've seen with most companies that I work with. They hire a content syndication agency. There are plenty, right? Then they do a content syndication, downloads, like giveaway downloads. Like as soon as you have a 50, 60 download, then that list goes to SDRs.
Yeah.
And then most of the experience that I've seen here is almost half of them say, I don't remember downloading this article or I don't remember downloading this content, right? And it's a huge, huge mistake that I keep telling people not to do. But then, like, right, SaaS is being SaaS, that, there's a lot of funding. So, focus on, acquisition a lot. But it's a big put off for me. Even though I've consulted a lot of companies, people don't listen, especially on this side, which is, content syndication, webinars, any downloads. At some level, even subscribers, right? Why would you even call a subscriber, who wants to kind of learn from you? And that keeps happening, right? But again, for me personally, the better experience that you give for people, make them come to you. If they engage with you at some level, and add so much of value that they'll come to you at some point. Okay, the focus should be on adding a lot of value in terms of content, the experience that you give them, or add a lot of value in terms of helping them grow. So those things matter a lot. Make them do their job much better, right? So I always think like, how can somebody is engaging with me, so I always think like, how can I make their job much more easier, so that if they actually have a requirement or probably they'll need help from me, they'll probably think about reaching out to me. Right? That's one thing that I really, really, think about all the time. So one best piece of advice, you mentioned multiple advices that your previous CEOs gave or the current CEOs, MDs gave you, right? So what is one piece of advice you ever received about customer advocacy?
This, I would take this to my grave. This is one very, very valuable advice, which few of my, I think this is something where everybody starts thinking in the same lines, right? All your leaders start thinking in the same lines. This I've heard it from quite a few people, and that's exactly why it is so strong, and it's there with me all the time. Customer advocacy, if you're going to, let's say, if you're planning to get into a customer advocacy team, right, then you cannot see customer advocacy as a job. Customer advocacy is a passion, right? It's always misinterpreted as a job because it comes with an apron, if you ask me, because it's a passion. It's about making your customers happy. So it's about making customers delighted, and that can happen only if you delight people around you. So the best advice which I would give to a lot of people would be, don't see customer advocacy as a 9 to 5 job or whatever shift it is job. It's a passion, right? If you love playing cricket, and if there is a bunch of friends who are calling you for cricket at 2 o'clock to play in a turf, night 2 o'clock, you don't care, you go there.
Yeah.
Right? Right. So, and let's say if it is a hot summer morning in Chennai where you are being asked to come to the ground at 8 o'clock in the morning to play on a Sunday morning, you go. And that's because you like cricket, and this is also because IPL season is around the corner, right? You like cricket, and it's because you like cricket, you go there, even if it is difficult, right? You don't even care about how difficult it is, right? Customer advocacy is that. Only if you start thinking them as cricket on an 8 o'clock morning on a Sunday, then you would be enjoying this activity. Else, this is one of the most tiring activity because it involves so many people, so many teams, and so many customer emotions to be coordinated for. So see this as a passion, then you would be able to do this well.
Yeah, very, very well said. I think I agree because for me, the moment I realized that I'm in love with marketing, I mean, of course, not now, but when I started out, right, every time I get a email reply, or somebody on the phone call says, "Yeah, I want to talk to you," but the more the feeling that I got when I got a reply, right, is what I thought. Okay, I should do this. Right, I really like this. But initially, I because of that kick, no, I want to move to sales. Right, I thought, okay, I'm probably better fit at sales. And those days, right, you have when you're in sales, you have an opportunity to move to the US because there's no India sales, right? There's only
Correct.
US, right? And most of the services companies were focusing on US sales, right? So that is what was my. And since then I've never never a dull moment in terms of any interaction that I have, or any replies I get, or any engagements I get, right? And through either my content creation, or through emails, or through any form of any channel, right? And I always really enjoy that, right? And then that's what I like 100% on that. Okay, passion. And yeah, and cricket example again. We've played a lot of cricket, right? During those days, during my school, I both days, Saturdays and Sundays, morning 8 o'clock to 1 2 p.m. and then go have lunch, come back, start another match, right? And we have all done that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And you've been, and it's not new in a Indian household where your parents scold you for doing this on a weekend, saying that why can't you show the same enthusiasm on a Monday morning? Right? That's because that is cricket and this is studies. So and that works. That works. The passion works.
Nice. So, what is the one superpower if you can have to help with your job? What would that be?
That's a tricky question. A superpower, yes. I would love to have the superpower of making people understand how the future looks like. Let's say if I can, let's say, take them on a time travel, show them 2027, and tell them, you know what, 2027, these are the things which people have been using, and this has become viral, and we have been building those things in 2024-23 just because it is going to get viral in 2027, because we have seen that happen. So if you can give me that superpower of taking people to 2027, showing them what exactly is the virality, which actually we are building it now, so that people will be more interested in listening to us on what things are getting built in some of the let's say SaaS companies in India. They have been building some. I was in SaaS Boomi last 2 weeks before, right? And there are amazing things which people are building from India for the world, and for us to make customers, potentials know that these are going to be the next set of tools which is going to take you on a growth trajectory. For them to understand, for them to believe, I want to take them to 2026-27.
Yeah, I think I strongly agree with that because for me it's the same, right? So if you had told me that 4 years back, if I would be like this, doing this, running a company, 20-25 employees, right, I wouldn't probably believed it. But then you just have to like strongly believe. But again, we are a little older now, so we have that maturity. But it's very difficult to convince a 20-year-old or late 20 years old to kind of see that 4 5 years vision, right? But but yeah, that's a good thing. So one advice that you would give for people who want to become or who wants to do customer advocacy, right? Like what should they focus on initially to what skill do you think they'll need to, become good at this, right? Of course, empathy, trying to help, passion, all of that, right? But then if I have to pick up like one skill, in terms of what do you say them go into where, right? Like, do they have to start with marketing, spend time in 1 year, maybe move to sales, then maybe engineering or solutioning, right? So what was probably the one skill that you will recommend a very junior person for that person to get into customer advocacy at some point?
I would maybe bring the first point which we started discussing to the last as well to just close this. I would say emotional investment, right? If you know that, if you have that trait of making people emotionally invested in whatever you're delivering, right? That can be even a single piece of code which you write. If people can fall in love with that feature, right? That's emotional investment, right? If you're going to, let's say, pitch your product, though you don't convert, but if that customer can go and talk about you, talk about that story, talk about that pitch to so many other people, then that is emotionally being invested in that conversation, right? I would tell you this best example, right? I have this pen. I don't know how many of you would have seen this pen, right? This is a pilot pen. It's a very, very old pen, right? We would have used it during our examinations. This pen has been there with me for almost 20 years now. 2004, 2004 is when I started using this during my college days, right? It's still with me and it's still writing. And if there is something which I cannot trade off, even for $1 million, is this pen. So if you have that trait of creating that emotional investment in whatever you do, right? I think you are fit for customer advocacy. You can be from any team. You can be from a sales team. You can be from an HR team. You can be from a SDR team, from a customer support engagement team, CSM team, whatever team it is, right? That's the best part about customer advocacy. It's not about just metrics. It's about passion. It's about you making the customer delighted. And that can happen only if you have that in your DNA, or you got to evolve, right? Where you delight people, you love delighting people, you love having that long-standing conversations with people, right? Else I wouldn't have been married for almost 9 years now. So yeah, so I'm that, and I would expect people to be that, to maybe like, if you want to try your hands on customer advocacy, this is the only advice I'll tell you.
Got it. Okay, so overall, to sum it up, if you have a suggestion for a SaaS company in terms of what should they focus on, and how should they think about customer experience and advocacy, right? Just sum it up in maybe a 1 minute, right? Just a suggestion as a suggestion for SaaS companies, right? What would that be?
Customer advocacy, you can be in any journey. It can be a 0 to 1 journey, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, even 100 and above a million journey, right? Please don't consider a customer advocacy team as a cost center. It's a revenue center. When you're going to handle customer advocacy properly, it becomes your revenue center. It's not a cost center. Right? So, because why I'm telling you this is because during our initial days, people think, okay, customer advocacy is when I have 20 customers who are happy, then maybe let me focus on customer advocacy. No, it starts on day one. It starts because your today's potential is your tomorrow's customer advocates. So you got to put in your effort there. You need not have a dedicated team per se, but the function should be there. Somebody has to co-own this function so that you build this community, you build this customer advocacy team from the day one of your entrepreneurial journey, so that you keep your customer at the center. Usually what happens is product comes at the center. And mostly we build and then we sell. But before we build, we got to listen. And for us to listen, I think customer advocacy team should be there in person. Right? So it can be even a 1-member team, or it can be even a shared resource, but start focusing on customer advocacy from day one so that it starts giving you results.
Got it.
So it's not a cost center, it's a revenue center. If you need a headline, this should be that.
Okay. I'm also taking it very seriously. So I'm going to be at least to start with, I'll probably act as a customer advocacy executive to start with, and then probably at some point hire
Yes,
somebody. But because I run a services company, it's very important for me to keep the customers
very
very,
true,
very happy, right? And
very true.
when I speak to people, there's one thing that a lot of them said is at some point either services become too boring. I mean you're doing the same thing again and again, right? It's nothing, and the scale is also, and customers also keep they also want to try out new things, right? They kind of get bored. I mean I just want to make sure that I have the same I implement some of the new ideas for the customers, learn from them, keep talking to them,
Correct.
make them keep them happy, and for me I also have 100% agree with that. That's the only way to grow,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
services has a lot of churn problem, because typically customers leave in 3 months, 6 months, while a product company or a SaaS company generally have a 2 year
a lock
tenure,
in.
or 3 years, right, lock in. But yeah, it was. I mean, with this, we've come to the end of the session. I have learned a lot, and it's a completely new thing for me, because I kind of understand a lot of sales and marketing, stuff, right? But then customer experience as a founder, and I've learned a lot in terms of how to measure, what to look at. The session has been quite very, very helpful for me, and I'm pretty sure that the audience also will find it very helpful. Thanks, Praveen, for joining us for the session. And it was amazing having you. It was a great pleasure. Again, talking to you. We keep bumping
It's
into each
it's
other, and
it's
it's a lot
always
to
a pleasure.
learn.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Karthik.
Thanks everyone for watching this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode and please subscribe.